This is another podcast on sound. This mini-series, there are 3 of them, so they all form a different part of the jigsaw. So today we're going to look at how our ear works, one's ear works, your ears work, assuming you've got 2 ears, how ears work, and how we process and interpret sound. And also I'll go on to how sound can affect our state of mind, psychologically. I find sound, the more I look at sound and talk about sound, the more I find it fascinating. I didn't appreciate really, the marvel of sound until I started to try to produce these podcasts for you. But as I always say, that I often produce these podcasts for you, and I also help myself because it awakens me to this marvelous, miraculous world that we live in. Remember that you are incredible. Your body, your being, yourself is a miracle. If you don't like the word miracle, we'll go for marvelous. And if you don't think that you are marvelous, that you are amazing, a miracle, there's something wrong with you, because I'm out to set out that you are amazing. Now, if you can hear me talking, then you're going to realize you are amazing just by the fact that you can hear. So in one of these 3 on podcasts on sound, we looked at how 2 objects struck together can make sound, and how everything around us is composed of atoms and molecules, and they vibrate at a different level. And when 2 objects are struck together, it causes one to vibrate more, depending on what it is, whether it's wood or metal or a brick or water. So, for example, we were mentioning that if I strike this cymbal, in the other podcast we looked at how the vibration sends out a pressure wave. The pressure wave is compressed and expanded. So the compressed part is the high pressure, high sound, and then the wave down, it's a wave, literally like a wave on the ocean, the sea. The compression is the high pitch, and then the expanding part, rarefaction, is the low pressure part of the wave. So to be a wave, it has to be an up and a down, a high pressure part and a low pressure part, and that is how sound resonates around from the vibration of the object. So there are many sounds going on around in the world, and the ear is designed to receive the sound to help us to make sense of the environment. We make sense of the world that we live in through our sensory input. Now, the sensory input, you see what we see, visual input, i.e. what we see, and what we can smell, olfactory input, i.e. what we smell, what we taste, what we touch, smooth, rough, soft, hot, cold, and what we hear. Now we're talking about what we hear. It helps us to make sense of the world around us. So the sound is thing. I can't keep on striking my cymbal it really will drive you away from my podcast. But okay, go for that. I made a sound. This pressure wave is received by my ear. Now, your ear, our ears are shaped like a wall, like a spiral. Why? Because they take the sound waves from different sounds and they twist it into our ear to create a gyre of sound. So look at your ear. It's got little funny folds and things. It's called a concha there, the middle part of the concha, and it receives and twists the sound into the tube there. There's a tunnel, if you like, a tube called the auricular passage. And I have a map here of the ear. I'm going to close up for a bit. So we have the ear. So the sound, from example, that symbol, resonates as a wave. Boom, resonates a wave, 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 wave. Comes into the ear. And this part, as I said, is called the concha. And there's the helix. The helix is the top bit. Helix, concha, doesn't matter really too much. And it goes through into here, down this passageway I mentioned. And then it strikes a drum called the eardrum. If you want the Latin word for a drum, we like words called a tympanum. And tympanum is Latin for drum. Why? Because it has, like a drum, it has an elastic surface on it, which covers the whole hole there. That white thing there is called the drum, or the tympanum. So when sound comes in from this symbol, we'll use this symbol. When the sound comes in, it comes in here, strikes the helix on the concha. It's twisted through, spun like a hurricane through that ear, and it strikes this, meets a doorway, a door closed, which is a drum layer. It strikes it, and that drum then, like a drum, vibrates itself. And when that vibrates, it then sends vibrations through into the middle part of the ear. And the middle part of the ear, there are 3 bones in your ear called ossicles, from the Latin ossus, meaning bone. And they are called the malleus, the incus, and the stapes. Yeah, okay. So the malleus comes from the Latin for hammer, like a beating, like a drum. Incus, any ideas what we're beating? Anvil, you may know, like the old blacksmith, where they're hitting an anvil, where they bend the metal on, they're hitting anvil. It's called the incus in Latin. And then it reaches the stapes. And what's stapes? Stapes is stirrup. Don't know if any of you have ever known anything about horses and a stirrup. Do you know what a stirrup is? You put your feet in a stirrup because it looks like a stirrup, or a staple, when you put a staple clip, a staple gun, look like a U. So these 3 bones vibrate further. They amplify the sound that's coming through your ear, spun down there, and it reaches the tympanum. The tympanum starts to vibrate, and that vibration is then amplified further in what's called the middle ear, this orange part. Can you see? Malleus, incus, and that stirrupy thing there called the stapes, sorry. So those 3 bones, they vibrate, and then those vibrations then reach a further film, another inner layer, which is like a drum. And then it goes into the vestibular area. which is in the blue area, which is the inner ear. Basically the inner ear, okay, outer ear is red, the middle ear is orange, and the inner ear is blue. So all these large loops called the vestibular area. We're not interested in that, because that is to do with balance and pressure and basically orientation and balance, to get your balance, you know, very important. It all goes on there in this whorl, on this gyre of tubes. And then we're interested in this bit, which is a spiral wall. It's called the cochlea. What does cochlea mean? It means little shell, like a beach shell, yeah, like a little shell. Because it's shaped like a little shell, like a spiral. So the sound is amplified by the three bones. It goes through into this other drum. The drum then resonates, and that then reaches the inner ear. Now, what's the difference between the inner ear and the middle ear? The inner ear has a liquid in it, and that liquid vibrates. Why? Because sound travels faster through the liquid. If I make a sound here, and for example I flick my fingers, that sound wave through air, the medium of air, travels at 0.23 miles a second. But through a liquid, sound travels 4.3 times faster, which is just under 1 mile a second. So why? Because the medium water is denser, i.e. thicker than air, and because it's denser, it passes this pressure wave through a lot more quickly. You see? So whoever made this universe, whatever made the universe, if you like, it's pretty miraculous, because in the inner ear you're going through a sound wave traveling through air. It then goes through the middle ear, amplified by these three bones which just happen to be fixed at the right angles with each other. It hits another inner ear drum, a drum layer, if you like, and then it's liquid, and through liquid it's then processed, and the sound is refined. We can distinguish it, subtle tones, subtle things, light sounds, the differences. We distinguish the sounds, or the ear, if you like, breaks down that signal. And so look quickly at this spiral. It goes through here, right? The outer part, they go into the spiral. That's where we receive the higher pitch sound. So the higher pitch would be a higher. That's all interpreted in the beginning of the spiral. Okay? Remember, this is what you've got in your ear. I've got 1, 2, amazing. And then lower sounds, so you see that's lower, that's a high pressure wave. It's a lower pressure wave. Now those are slower, and they're picked up in the inner part of that spiral, because they're more difficult, they're more subtle, they're more, you know, they're different. So this central part, called the cochlea, there we go, is concerned with processing those sounds. And then inside this spiral there are little hair-like structures, like they're called ciliae, if you like. Ciliae, not silly, but ciliae. And those cilia pick up the pressure waves going through the liquid in the cochlea, and then the little ciliae do that wave. Just imagine like that, like a branch on a tree or some seaweed in the ocean. Now, when these little hair-like branches that look a bit like my hand actually coming out. Oh, let's use this. So the hand goes like that. They sense that. Now when they go that way, they open an iron gate. Just go an iron gate. The irons, made of irons. That depolarizes the area at the bottom. It opens this that way. It depolarizes the area. Okay? And that causes, it transducts is the good word, it changes this pressure wave signal into a chemical nervous reaction. The auditory nerve goes down into the auditory nerve then travels to our mind where we process the sound that we've heard. Again, in the central part of the inner ear you've got this round spiral. The outer part deals with the high sounds, and the more you go into the spiral deals with the low sounds. And those sounds, the walls of this spiral wall have little cilia, and they go that way and that way, depending on the pressure waves. So high pressure, low pressure, very high pressure, low pressure. And that, when they're in that way, they release ions, which depolarizes the point. And then when they go that way, they close, and it repolarizes the point, repolarizing a little higher pressure and depolarization a little low pressure. Now I know I'm probably going a bit too deeply here, but stay with me. And then that signal is transferred through our nerve and we receive it in the brain. We go, oh, what's that? So for example, if I wanted to hear the sound of water, I receive that. My mind may be calm, hopefully it may calm me down. If I hear a police siren over there going round and round and round and round, that may trigger a reaction in me. And particularly if I've stolen some jewelry and the police are after me. But sounds affect us in our mind. So sound is traveling it's a journey of sounds that reach us. And it travels down these auditory nerves, because obviously we have to receive that sound. And the nervous signals signal parts of and activate parts of our mind. And the way our mind is activated by the sound, we can either perceive a threat, we can perceive something which is non-threatening, we can perceive something that's enjoyable, will make us relax, usually at a basic level, and aggressive, or say a tiger roars. That's going to cause a sound, will cause me a reaction. So sounds can cause us to psychologically react because the auditory nerves are sending information, signals to our mind. The sounds create these nervous energy transmissions to our mind. So our mind we receive through nerves, okay? Everything we do is nerves. So for me to lift my hand, it's a motor neuron response. I'm using my nerves and my muscles in coordination. So to see you, I'm using, or to see whatever, I'm using nerves. Everything I do has to have a nervous event going on, including sound. So that's how we take a mechanical sound wave. It comes through our ear, the outer ear, the middle ear, the three bones in the middle ear. They amplify the sound. It then reaches another eardrum, an inner eardrum, and then that sends vibrations through a liquid, that goes into this spiral called the cochlea, high sounds and low sounds, and then those are transducted into an electric signal. Those electric signals goes into our mind, which we then interpret based on the sound that we hear. So when I started out by saying that you are a miracle, that you are an amazing being, it doesn't matter whether you think you are. You are. You don't need to think you are. I'm trying to open your mind to another amazing marvel, a miracle right around you that doesn't cost any money. Even to listen to, say, a fly buzzing or a bird, anything, and then to reflect on how that sound is coming to you as a pressure wave through these parts of your ear and to your mind. It doesn't cost anything to appreciate. I'm not talking about, buying clothes or having a shelter, a place to live, or food to eat. I'm talking about being able to appreciate this amazing universe that we live in. Those are other topics. I will leave the psychology and the mind and the power of names and words for the third part of this podcast, which is to do with the subject of phonetics. So a mechanical sound, striking a percussion instrument, when an instrument is struck, it's called a percussion instrument. Okay, that's producing a mechanical wave of sound, percussion instrument. And most of the sounds that you will hear around us are made not from human beings or from animals. Well, in a city, they're made from objects, such as, objects, rather than people or birds or nature. But if you live in a country or you go to a countryside space, you're going to encounter sounds that come from animals. And most animal sounds come from vocal cords here. So the third podcast is going to be about how we make sounds with our mouths, and this is called phonetics. We're looking at words, how we make sound using two vocal cords. Imagine two chords of a guitar. You pluck a guitar and you make a sound. Well, we have two chords here which vibrate, and we push air through them and we move our larynx and our vocal box in order to make certain sounds. So the third podcast, we're going to look at how we make sounds, and then how sounds and names can affect us, our mind, and then also including how names of gods and God and people's names and your name and my name and the power of names will include in this one about how we vocalize sound and how words can affect the way we feel, either for the better or for the worse. So hopefully you'll find that third podcast on the power of names, sound and the power of names, I'm going to call it. And the other one was sound as a force, and this one is how sound and how we hear, sound and hearing. thank you again, and it was a real pleasure to be able to make this podcast about something interesting, and I won't repeat it again, but human body and yourself are, is and you are a miracle and an amazing person, amazing thing. Another one in this mini series about appreciating the world around, or waking up to the marvels around us, is all to do with cells, the cells in your body. And another one I have is on the uniqueness of fingerprint, your fingerprint, which will further enhance the way you feel special about yourself. So be good, take care, and catch you next time.